All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a question that's like everywhere in our lives, but we almost never stop to think about it. I mean, think about it. You have the right to free speech, right? The right to a fair trial, the right to an education. But have you ever really stopped and asked, where did those really come from? A government? A document? Something else? Well, the answer probably isn't what you think. See, the source of our most basic freedoms, it's not just some piece of paper or a government building. It's something much more alive, something that's born from the community itself. Okay, so first things first, we have to get one huge misunderstanding out of the way. The state, the government, it doesn't give you your rights. Not at all. And this right here, this is the key. Rights don't trickle down from the top. Nope, they bubble up from society. They come from our shared idea of what a person needs to, really flourish. The government's job isn't to invent these rights. It's just to protect what we, as a society, have already decided is essential. So, okay, if rights come from society, then what is a right exactly? It's really important to separate them from a couple of other things they get mixed up with all the time. Okay, look, anyone can make a claim, right? I can claim I have a right to your lunch, but that's just a demand. It's wishful thinking. It only turns into a real right when society as a whole says, yeah, that's a valid claim, and the state is ready to step in and enforce it. Without that social buy-in, a claim is pretty much powerless. And this leads to another huge difference, the one between might and right. Just because you have the physical power to do something doesn't mean you have the right to do it. A right isn't about raw, individual muscle. It's a power that society has agreed is necessary for the good of everyone. So let's pull all that together. Here's our working definition. A right is basically a social claim that gives you the tools you need to become your best self. It's born from the community, and the state's job is to be its guardian. Now, you can probably guess that thinkers have been arguing about this for centuries. So let's dive into the 5 major theories that have been battling it out to explain where rights really come from. All right, this table lays out the whole philosophical showdown. Let's just walk through it real quick. First up, you've got the natural theory, the idea that rights are just part of being human. They exist even before society. But critics shoot back, how can you have a right if there's no society to recognize it? Then you have the legal theory, which says, hey, rights are just whatever the law says they are. The big problem there, if the state gives them, the state can take them away. Then you've got the historical, social welfare, and Marxist theories. They all have different angles, tying rights to tradition, or the common good, or even who holds the economic power. And as you can see, every single one of these theories has a cool idea, but also a pretty big weakness. And believe me, this wasn't some polite little academic debate. It got nasty. The famous philosopher Jeremy Bentham, for instance, had absolutely no time for the theory of natural rights. He called it, get this, rhetorical nonsense upon stilts. Basically, he thought it was a ridiculous fantasy. So you might be thinking, okay, a bunch of old philosophers arguing, why should I care? Well, this philosophical battle matters a ton, because how we answer this question, where do rights come from, it directly shapes the laws we all live under and the very way our governments are built. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. This is where all that abstract theory crashes into the real world. A society's answer to that big question determines which rights it puts on a pedestal, which ones it prioritizes over everything else. Just look at this comparison. In liberal democratic systems, they tend to put political rights, things like freedom of speech, right at the top of the list. The whole idea is that you need those political freedoms to get anything else. But socialist systems, they flip that completely upside down. They argue that without economic rights first, like the right to a job, to security, all those political rights are totally meaningless. See, your philosophy literally creates your politics. So after the absolute horror of World War II, the world was reeling. And the international community decided to do something pretty radical. They decided to come together and try to create a global agreement on what rights are. They wanted to build a framework that could mash all these different ideas together into one single universal standard for every single person on the planet. And what came out of that was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the UN approved back in 1948. It lays out 30 articles, 30 fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every single one of us, no matter who we are or where we live. And the scope of this thing is Well, it's huge. It covers all the classic political rights we think of: life, liberty, a fair trial. It protects our personal freedoms, like who we marry or what we believe. But, and this is so important, it also tries to bridge that gap we just saw by including economic and social rights, like the right to work and the right to an education. It was this massive attempt to say, hey, all of these rights are connected. You need all of them.
Okay, so we've talked about where rights come from, how they work in the real world, but there is one last, absolutely essential piece of this puzzle we haven't touched on yet. You could call it the price of admission.
And here it is. This is maybe the biggest takeaway of all. Rights aren't free. They don't just exist in a vacuum. They are totally, fundamentally tied to our responsibilities. You can almost think of them as the reward society gives us for doing our part. This quote from L.T. Hobhouse just nails it. A right is a two-way street. It's what you can expect from others, sure, but it's also tied to what others can expect from you. Your right to free speech is linked to your duty not to slander people. Your right to security is linked to your duty to follow the law. You just can't have one without the other. And that leaves us with one final, really important question. We've spent all this time talking about what we're allowed to claim from society. But maybe the more important question is what we have a responsibility to give back. If this whole amazing system of rights that protects every one of us is built on this foundation of what we owe each other, then what exactly do you owe the people around you?